First of all, I'd like to thank everyone out there who left me comments in all of my videos telling me about how terrible this movie was going to be, warning me about it, so that yesterday, when I went to watch this in theaters for my very first time, my expectations were very low for this, but I came away loving this movie. In fact, it's one of my favorite DBZ movies of all time. It's either going to be maybe number 3 or number 4 on my list, which I also need to make. But before you get into the whole, oh, Bob's just fanboying, I don't want to watch this, he's just a big DBZ-tard, that's not really the case. I like Dragon Ball Z, I have a lot of Dragon Ball Z merchandise, but I'm not that big of a fanboy. I recognize that the DB story has a lot of plot holes in it, and it's meant to be taken very lightly. The 3 biggest focus points in Dragon Ball Z are going to be your characters, the action, and also the comedy. It was never about having this tightly knit story that everything makes sense and there's no plot holes whatsoever. This is Dragon Ball Z. This is a comedy series with action and great characters. Sure, there are great emotional things in the story of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but still, it was never completely about that. It was always about the comedy, the action, and the characters, so I don't really get what people were expecting out of a Dragon Ball Z movie, aside from those 3 things. Yeah, sure, this movie did have a lot of plot holes to it, and I will be discussing that later on, but I really enjoyed this nonetheless. Being in a room with my friends and with a bunch of other random anime fans, all cheering on the movie, the Funimation logo comes up on the screen, everybody's cheering for that, and characters are interacting with each other and saying certain things, and people are laughing and yelling things at the screen. It was a great experience overall watching that, sitting there with my extremely overpriced popcorn, watching this movie with a room full of other anime fans. So in the beginning of this movie, we meet Beerus, who is this god of destruction off in a distant galaxy who's waking up after many years. This was why I was wondering, okay, if there is somebody as powerful as that who could just destroy Goku, who could stand up, who's basically a god, where has he been this entire time of DBZ, and how come nobody mentioned him? And it actually makes sense because he was just asleep this whole time. He went to sleep and he let Frieza just do whatever he wanted, and then it did this flashback later on where Beerus was actually on planet Vegeta, and Vegeta's father was giving him this big spread of food on the table, and Vegeta's father was kneeling down before him, and Beerus had his foot on top of him as little Vegeta looked around the corner just pissed off at him. I really like that it did that, just showing about how he's actually tied into the story despite the fact that he was never even mentioned. So after this movie's slow start where they do a great job of introducing you to the new antagonist, we move on to see it's Bulma's birthday party, and this was another thing that I really liked about this movie. It's pretty much one of these ending reunion episodes, like at the end of an anime series where you see all of the characters together and they're having one of these big parties, and it's a whole lot of comedy there. I felt that way about it because there are so many characters, including the majority of all of the great DBZ characters. Like, there was the Ox King there was Emperor Pilaf, there was Mai, and there was Chu there as well. And one thing that was weird about Mai and Chu, I expected Shu and Pilaf to pretty much look the same just because one's a dog, and I don't know what Pilaf is, but I expected him to look exactly how he looked. But we have Mai, who looks like this really little girl, who I don't even think she looked that young in the original Dragon Ball series. Turns out that they had found the Dragon Balls before, and they use the Dragon Balls to make themselves younger. They infiltrate Bulma's house, and they go into one room where it has all of the bingo prizes, because they were having this bingo game where it has a lot of great prizes, such as a castle, because apparently Bulma is the richest person in the world now. There are the Dragon Balls there as well, and of course they're trying to steal them, because how long has it been? Emperor Pilaf has still not had his way yet, and I felt that that was really funny. I felt that this whole scene where Pilaf and his henchmen walking into this room trying to steal the Dragon Balls, and then Goten comes in, and he looks like young Goku, and they remember when young Goku transformed into Uzaru mode and just started wrecking their castle, and they were afraid of that. I laughed so much at that scene. I really loved it. Another thing that I really liked about the original Dragon Ball series was how the comedy was done. And with the comedy of Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, it did that in a way where they had this comedy of innocent characters in a world that isn't so innocent, but then again at the same time, they had a different form of comedy altogether. Pretty much what we saw a lot of in this this movie was we knew how all of the characters were going to act, and then seeing them play off of each other, because we've never really seen so many of them together at the same time like this. And all of these characters, they were predictable in good ways, because there were times when characters would approach other characters and you knew how they were going to react to each other, but it was so funny watching them because you've never seen them interact with each other before. So next we see Goku on King Kai's planet. He's just running around, they're training and everything, and I can't imagine that he wouldn't even need to train with King Kai anymore, or train on a planet with gravity such as that, just because he's got the gravity chamber, and then he's Goku after defeating Buu. So I would imagine that he would be training on the sun, or like standing on top of a black hole, just trying to resist the pull of the strong gravity there, because he's Goku, and that's kind of how he does things. And then out of nowhere, we've got Beerus and Whis on this planet, and Goku wants to challenge them. Here we have Goku right in front of Beerus, and he's trying to present himself in the only way he knows how, like, hey, I'm Goku. But of course, King Kai's like, don't do that, you gotta be proper with him, you gotta be very nice to him, because you don't want him to destroy the entire galaxy. So Goku's like, okay, he's trying to be a proper gentleman, and he has no idea of what that even means. Goku and Beerus actually start fighting each other, and Goku's like, I don't know, you sure you want my full power? He goes Super Saiyan 1, just showing off everything, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, and he's just standing there all buff, and he goes to hit Beerus as hard as he can, and Beerus is just catching it like nothing, and then just flicks Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, in the head so hard that it knocks him practically around the planet. Beerus just stands there, nonchalant, just hanging out, and handles Super Saiyan 3 Goku with 2 strikes, knocking him out. And I was just like, wow, this guy is the real deal. The reason that Beerus is paying a visit to King Kai's planet is because he had a premonition about a Super Saiyan god, a Saiyan who would just power overall with the strength of a god. And he went there trying to ask about it because he assumed that there was one, because he knew so little about the Saiyans that he didn't even know what a Super Saiyan was. So he's going there asking about it. Of course, Goku doesn't know. He goes off to Earth to ask the other Saiyans about it, and he appears at this party. Nobody can sense his energy. The only person here that knows that Beerus is the god of destruction and can destroy the entire galaxy with no problem whatsoever is Vegeta. And he's making a fool of himself trying to appease him. And here comes drunk-ass Bulma, and she's just coming up all drunk, stumbling around, slurring her words like, hey, what do you think of my party? Don't I look beautiful for my birthday and everything like that? And I just knew that she was going to do something to piss him off and get everything destroyed, but it wasn't really the case, and he actually humored her, and he actually had a bit of respect for her and was like, oh yes, it is a nice party and everything. So Buu is just sitting at this table with this massive tray of pudding. Beerus is like, sir, can I please have a cup of pudding? Thank you so much for that. And Buu is like, Boo's pudding! And he's just like shoveling it all into his face, and Beerus gets all mad by that, and he gets ready to destroy everything. And he's like, you don't know what it's like. You Earthlings have been here enjoying this pudding for your entire life, but you do not know my suffering. I've never known about pudding, and it's been 5 whole minutes that I haven't been able to enjoy the delicacy of pudding. And then there was a time when Bulma stepped up to him, and he pretty much slapped Bulma in the face, knocking her to the ground. And everybody in the theaters when I was watching this was just like, because they knew that he just pissed off Vegeta. And then they had this part which really reminded me of two different of my favorite moments in DBZ with Vegeta. One time was when Trunks was getting destroyed by Cell, and Vegeta flips out. This is the first time when you see Vegeta truly care about another character. He flips out and just starts throwing all of these energy beams in there, making this massive cloud. He's just going crazy, going all out, throwing everything that he had. And then it also reminded me of the part in the Buu saga where he was Majin Vegeta, where he was saying, there's one thing a Saiyan always keeps, his pride, and has this massive boost of energy. This moment where Beerus strikes down Bulma really reminded me of that, because he says, that's my Bulma, and just has this my pride moment where his power level increases so much, just temporarily became stronger than Goku, which is another plot hole. And he actually gives Beerus a run for his money here, because he's actually hitting him up a bunch of times, causing him to, like, he'll punch him in the face, and it wasn't just like he hits him and his head stays there or he catches it. He's actually pushing him around, and Goku steps in, getting ready to fight him, and then they collect all of the Dragon Balls together, summoning Shenron, asking him about this Super Saiyan God. And here we learn that the Super Saiyan God is actually a temporary state where 6 Saiyans come together and give their energy into one Saiyan, where he can become this God mode for a temporary amount of time. To be honest with you, this whole Saiyan God form, I'm not that impressed with it. I thought it could have been better, and I think we have too many Saiyan forms anyways. With the Super Saiyan God form, I expected it to be partial ape, at least, kind of like Super Saiyan 4 mode, but it was so cliche. Like, you've got Goku with red hair, red eyes, and a fire aura, and that is the most cliche thing that you could have done. Come on, I mean, that's a really cheap way out of making something stronger, making it red, and adding flames to it. It kind of sounds like a 6-year-old was drawing it or something, but to be honest with you, I did expect a little bit more out of that from Toriyama. So we've got Goku fighting against Beerus, and they pretty much pull out all of the stops for this fight. It was insane, because there were mountains that were getting destroyed. I remember there was one point where a mountain got blasted through, and then they were in this cave underground fighting it out, and they were then up in the sky, and then they went off into this jungle where nothing could be destroyed, and Goku was getting slammed through tree after tree after tree, and they were fighting there, going all out. But the power of the God form had actually dissipated from Goku, and Goku, because he had went God form, it had increased his strength a lot because he had experienced that much strength. So with this whole Goku-Beerus fight and the ending of this movie, I felt that it was so anticlimactic. My least favorite thing out of the entire movie was this actual ending here, because you're watching this great experience of all these characters interact with each other, you're watching this crazy fight, and then it kind of ends where there's no victor. They kind of just decide to stop. I appreciate the ending of this, don't get me wrong, I know the reason for it, but I was pumped up after that crazy fight. I wanted to see somebody win and somebody lose, but that wasn't really the case. We had this agreement where Bills was not going to destroy planet Earth, and he was going to let Goku continue, and he was going to let Goku continue to train and everything. And then we see that Goku is actually the second strongest person that Beerus has actually fought before. And one thing was kind of weird, because they said that Beerus was the strongest destructive force in their universe, but then Whis, who was his trainer, is actually stronger than Beerus, because we see at the end of the movie, Whis takes Beerus out with a chop to the neck. One shot took out Beerus after everything that we've seen, after all of this where Beerus was prepared to destroy the entire galaxy. Whis just takes him out with a single chop. One thing that I'd really like to see after the ending of Battle of Gods is either a small mini-series or another movie or something where Goku is actually being trained by Whis, just like how Beerus was, because we've already seen that Goku has the power of a god, and secondly, we see that Whis is training Beerus, and they say that there are 12 different universes. They all have their god characters of destruction, and all these different gods of everything that are much stronger than anything that is imaginable, even stronger than Beerus, possibly. I really like the fact that the animation of this, even though it went as far as being in HD and it went as far as adding some CGI to this, it still was that Dragon Ball Z that I know and love, and all of the characters look the same, and even though it did have an upgrade in the art style to it, it still stayed true to that art style that we all know and love with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and everything. They did add some CG here, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like, there was King Kai's car on his planet that was going around, that was CG. They would use CG to have the camera zoom into the scene and zoom around buildings, and it looked like it was all 3D. I think this would probably be a good movie to watch in 3D because of things like that. So moving on to the audio, as soon as this movie started, we had Chala, Head Chala, and everybody in the theaters was just cheering for that. It wasn't the same song, it was actually sung by different people, Of course, I like the original a little bit more, but it's still great just hearing that song in theaters like that, and I really enjoyed that they added that song to this movie. Moving on to the English dub quality of this, it sounded like they used all of the original voice cast. I could be wrong. I liked the emotion that they put into voice acting. I liked that they really went all out with the voice acting here, and the dub really did make this for me. So overall, I guess I would have to give Dragon Ball Z an 8 just because the comedy was on point. I was loving that comedy. The fights, they were pretty good. All of the characters were there, and I love the fact that they all interacted so well, and the story did have some plot holes. So there is a lot of give and take here with the scoring, so I would say that it's a solid 8. It's a movie that I did enjoy, and I do recommend you to watch this with the dub. As far as the plot holes go, first of all, Pilaf had the Dragon Balls and actually used the Dragon Balls in a world where the characters are strong enough to stand toe-to-toe with Boot. And then there was a point where Goku was being powered up to become this God Saiyan. They needed 6 Saiyans, but there were really only 5. So here we have Videl, which is conveniently pregnant, and which isn't really a big deal because characters have kids all the time in DBZ. It's not a really big deal or anything. I kind of expected that, so I don't have a problem with Videl being pregnant, and I think that's pretty cool. You get a new character in the DBZ universe, but we have this little baby fetus inside of Videl, which is only 1/4 Saiyan, and they use that energy to boost Goku to this god power. And of course, they use all of the other Saiyan's abilities as well. But one thing I don't get was, after Goku became the God Saiyan and his power dissipated, you have this party where you have the strongest people in the entire world watching Goku fight against Beerus. And Goku's actually putting up a pretty good fight against him, but why don't they help him? They're pretty much standing there watching the fate of the galaxy in the hand of one person when they could all pretty much chip in and gang up on the dude and pretty much protect their galaxy. On top of that, when Goku's god powers dissipated, he was still able to fight after that. He still had his energy, so they could have all went back to each other and powered up. They could have went, then Vegeta could have powered up. Then after that dissipated, they could have powered up Gohan as well. And they could have just went through everybody and powered them up and just continuously stacked this ability to make themselves as strong as a god. And then they could have easily defeated Beerus. So in the Beerus fight against Goku, Beerus says that he used 70% of his power, and he created this massive energy ball that was going to destroy Earth. And Goku was holding it off with all of his power, and he couldn't give in. So obviously, the power of that ball was more than Goku had, even though he almost had the power of a god. He didn't still have the power of a god at that point, but still he had a lot of extra strength that he didn't have before. And the ball that was going to destroy Earth was more than he could handle, but we had Frieza. At this point, Frieza, even if he was still as powerful as he was in the Frieza saga, would just get wiped out by Goku in an instant at this point. But Frieza was able to sit there in front of planet Vegeta and with one finger destroy the entire planet. And then we saw on the planet of Namek, he took this energy ball and sent it down into the core of the planet, destroying that within 10 minutes. It took like 6 episodes or whatever. So with that fight, Frieza had the ability to not only destroy the planet of Namek, but also to continuously fight against Goku as well. Beerus, who could have also destroyed the planet, and he sent an energy beam that was strong, or an energy ball that was strong enough to destroy the planet, which was 70% of his power, that Goku at that point couldn't really hold off. He took everything that he had to hold off that energy ball. All of that sounds pretty inconsistent to me, because if you think that Frieza had the ability to go like this and destroy planet Vegeta, then you would expect that Beerus, the god of destruction, could also go like that and destroy planets. He could probably just go like that and just destroy the entire galaxy, you would expect, just because he's that much stronger than everybody else. He's the god of destruction. Another thing was Goku. He was able to shoot the Kamehameha just instantly, just by going, ha, just shooting it all. So if he can expedite the casting time of his abilities, why didn't he make a spirit bomb? Because first of all, he could draw the power from the entire Earth. Secondly, he's got all of the strongest fighters in the world. All of them are there, and they're rooting for him to win. So they could have given all of their power to him for that spirit bomb. So he could have had God mode. He could have probably done Kaioken as well. I don't know how that would work in God mode, but he could have also done a spirit bomb as well against Beerus. And people could say, well, there's the time constraint. Beerus wouldn't let him gather up that much energy, but then again, he uses it time and time again to win all of the battles in the movies and all of these other battles as well. And to be honest with you, a lot of these people wouldn't have, or a lot of the villains wouldn't have let him build that spirit bomb up in actuality anyways, so he could have just built another spirit bomb in God mode with everybody's power and took out Beerus, or at least hurt him a lot. Then we see when Bulma gets hit, Vegeta becomes so pissed off that he temporarily becomes stronger than Goku, which is another huge plot hole because Goku has Super Saiyan 3, and as of then, Vegeta is still incapable of going Super Saiyan 3, even though he is a full-blooded Saiyan. So the only two people are capable of going Super Saiyan 3 are going to be Goku and Vegeta, but even though Vegeta was stronger than Goku, who had mastered Super Saiyan 3 abilities long ago, he was still incapable of going Super Saiyan 3, and even at an earlier Super Saiyan state, he had more power than Super Saiyan 3 Goku did, which didn't make any sense. And then we had Goku with all of these new powers, and he's still giving it his all against Beerus. The power of the God mode had dissipated and returned to everybody, basically. Why didn't Vegeta and Goku fuse? Since you have Vegeta, which is now stronger than Goku just temporarily. I mean, if he can do it once, he can do it again. I'm sure they could pencil it in somewhere. So you've got Vegeta with the power of Goku, and Goku with the power of the God. They could have just fused together and then fought against Beerus, and I think they would have won. The last major plot hole that I saw in this movie was that Beerus knew about King Kai, and he had apparently been to King Kai's planet and shrunk it down so small, which doesn't really make any sense, but it's whatever at that point. But he did not know about Earth. He never heard about Earth, and he never knew what the job of King Kai was. He never knew about that, but yet he knew who King Kai was, and he knew where his planet was located, and he had been there before, but yet he had never heard of Earth. So that's pretty incompetent of him, and I think that that's a pretty big plot hole. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say about the plot holes of this movie. I really enjoyed the movie overall, despite the fact that I saw so many possibilities where they could have fixed certain things in the movie. I still really enjoyed it. The characters, I really love seeing the return of these characters and having them interact with each other. I love watching the party. I loved all of the comedy that we had. It was beautiful animation. I love watching the dub of this. It was an overall great experience for me. Let me know about this in the comments section below. What are your thoughts about this movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you not care about it? Did you watch it sub or dub? Did you watch this in the theaters? And what was your movie-going experience with watching this? Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, like it, and also share it with your friends. Thank you for sitting with me in this long review of such a short movie. I'll see you later.